What's a hack in your industry that customers aren't supposed to find out? Part 2. I'm a teacher. You can learn anything you want now from the internet, if you have the willpower. Teaching continues to exist, because most humans learn best with someone to hold them accountable, and human interaction. That said, especially with YouTube, if you have a little patience, and aren't afraid of trial and error, you can literally learn anything. As many of you pointed out, plenty of room for nuance, and I am speaking very generally. But very interesting discussion, so, thank you all. There's probably a balance to be made between situations where we can use our own intrinsic motivation to learn, and the moments we recognize our needs for an experienced person in the subject to motivate us and bounce ideas off of. I do sometimes feel a bit guilty that I could be learning literally anything I want, and I'm scrolling Reddit. Guilty, I am the reason for my own job security. I also need the accountability at times. Caveat: you also need the skills to find accurate, up-to-date, credible information online. Too many people feel like they are learning from things they see on the internet, when they are really just picking up second-hand dumb. Don't buy the first or last year of a car. First year, they're still working out the bugs in the manufacturing process, and the last year, they're focused on getting the new model processes working, and less attention on the outgoing model. The very best year is the mid-cycle refresh. Processes should be stable by then, and the refreshed exterior are such minor tweaks. From a manufacturing perspective, it's not affecting quality, and as a perk, it usually looks better than the original. Former automotive body process engineer. Edit: I'm getting asked a lot as to why the last year would be bad. Yes, the large problems have been worked out, but in manufacturing, there will always be variability that is monitored and either adjusted where the part is made, the parts themselves, or the assembly jig, to keep things within tolerances. Imagine you have playing cards, and you have 3 buddies with hole punches, making a hole in the same spot in each card individually, with different suppliers and equipment, and you have a time limit on how long it takes to make their punch. Over time, I'll guarantee, even with a jig they will start to vary. Punch gets worn out, your card vendor this week sent card stock that's slightly thicker than the others. Humidity at friend 3's location caused the cards to swell. In a model change year, the folks that monitor and adjust for variability have tasks for the new model that takes their full attention away from the current model and splits it up. They're still the same highly qualified people as they were yesterday, but they're being pulled in more directions now. Where I worked, we had one ultra-accurate scanner to measure the entire body to find variability. Guess who got priority on the table? I've got 3 portable units to measure smaller parts out on the floor. One's at a vendor location, tracking down a supplier problem. The other is figuring out why an A-pillar inner panel in the new model is twisted, and I get the shitty one to figure out why the tranny dog leg on the outer panel doesn't align well with the striker plate. Anyhow, that's why the last year should be avoided in most cases. These are all generalizations that always have an exception, or 3. I don't work there anymore, but I used to work for a cable internet ISP. You weren't supposed to know this, but when customers complained about slow hardwired speeds, we'd show up and pretend to do something, knowing full well that the issue was our nodes being oversaturated everywhere. But we would never tell you. We eventually introduced something called Power Boost to mask the problem by skewing speed tests. Your first 5 to 20 seconds would be uncapped bandwidth, and you would think you were getting a quality product when you weren't. When IT or tech support asks you to restart your computer, it could be to apply a fix they made in the back end, or it could be buying them time for any number of reasons. They applied a fix, and it just takes time to sync up. The reboot just prevents the awkward silence of waiting. They're not sure what the problem or solution is, so they're hoping a reboot fixes it. If not, they're buying time to think or research. Oh, and if you say that you've already restarted, do yourself a favor and follow their instructions. After all, you called them for help. If you didn't want or need their help, you wouldn't have called. Disclaimer: this does not apply to all techs or interactions with same. Oh, and please actually do a reboot. Not close the lid and open it again if it's a notebook, or turn it off or on again if it is a computer. Those are not the same thing. Customer is a bit of a stretch here, but I work on federally funded research, so, in a way, my customer is the tax-paying public. Universities take up to 50% of all federal grants as overhead. Half of the money the NIH sends for cancer research or vaccine studies instead lines the pockets of talentless administrators. Then when we, at long last, finish our experiments and analysis, we need to pay journals to host our work, so that people pay them to read our work. We don't see a cent. Finally, when that's all said and done, after admin cuts budgets in half to pay the football coach, and the journal charges us another $10K for editors who they didn't pay, it goes to the pharma companies and hospitals who take this federally funded work and sell it back to the taxpayer. Research is an effing scam. Everyone except the admin of universities, journals, and hospitals suffer. If you have a child or friend who wants to go into science, tell them it's not worth it. Have it as a hobby, not a job. I'm a singer, and I book a lot of weddings, or corporate, or general gigs. If you come to me directly, rather going through an agency, I can plan and run all the music, whether you want just me and a guitar, to full band and DJ, for after party. It can literally save you thousands. Some agencies put a 40 to 60% markup on my services, and I ask them for more than I'd charge someone privately. It's crazy. If you're looking for entertainment, try and contact direct. Audio engineers will have faders or knobs that don't do anything. When the talent asks for a change that's goofy or makes no sense, we'll adjust that phantom knob and watch them nod their head in approval of their amazing idea. I have worked with both audio engineers and musicians, and can verify. On the musician side, one of the cruelest and funniest pranks I've heard of was a drummer who would create a nearly inaudible hiss in his mouth. He would watch the engineers disconnecting and reconnecting cables and replacing microphones until they got rid of the hiss. Bartender here. If you're at an event with an open bar or something similar, tip $20 cash on your first drink, and introduce yourself to your bartender if it isn't crazy busy. Give them the cash, and say some variation on, "Hey X, good to meet you, my name's Mike. I'm going to be drinking your drink order all night. Thanks for taking care of us at this event. Guarantees good service, skipping the line, etc." My husband and I would go to a conference every year, and the bartender always remembered us, and would say, "The usual?" to make sure we were drinking the same cocktails from the year prior. The conference was 3 days, so we always made sure to tip him well. My fiancée and I, along with the in-laws, went on a cruise with the drink package paid in advance. We continued to tip upon tip, because the waitstaff was so friendly and fast, despite the ship being packed to the gills. I miss that bartender named Nestor. His bar ran out of Guinness, but knowing that was our preferred beer, he left to get some from another bar for us, without us knowing. We tipped him again before the trip was over. I worked for an airline. I managed the development of the system our call center agents use. Please, and thank you, will unlock magical doors of help when you're on the phone with the agents, or are at the airport, dealing with airport staff. Simple politeness no longer seems to exist in these interactions. I've shadowed agents to understand how they use what my teams develop, and I can count on two hands, in the 150 to 200 calls I've listened into over the last year, where the caller was polite and acted decently towards the other human on the other end of the line. I used to work in credit cards. If you disputed a charge for less than $75, not as fraud, we would just credit you the money. Most of the time, we wouldn't even investigate it past the initial chargeback. If we didn't win the case, you still got your money back. However, if we find out you've figured this out, we would stop giving you the credit unless we won. We've even closed accounts that took advantage of it. But if you want your money back as a one-time thing, or whatever, you'd be fine. If you're hurt or ill and in a lot of pain, the provider will often ask where you're at on the pain scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the worst pain of your life. Don't ever say 10. For whatever reason, it loses your credibility or something, and makes it seem like you're hamming up your pain level. Instead, say 7 to 9. Those are all still very real pain levels, and make it seem more reasonable. Providers are very likely to alleviate these levels of pain. I don't know why this is. As a paramedic, it also works on me. Maybe it's because drug seekers will often say 10/10ths, and so I'm conditioned to thinking that response is nonsense. If you like to book guided tours while you travel, and you like to do it on Viator, TripAdvisor, or Expedia, you should know that those third-party reselling sites take 22 to 25% of the booking price for themselves. When local tour companies like mine put our tour offerings on their sites, we agree to give the sites the lowest price. We cannot post a lower price anywhere, because if it's discovered that we do, we will be removed from the platforms. Tour companies like mine will jump to give you a 10 to 15% discount if you call us and mention you were looking to book via Viator, TripAdvisor, or Expedia. You save 10%, we recoup the potential 10 to 15% that those sites would have taken, and everybody wins. At GameStop, if you get a pre-owned controller and get the warranty, you can come back a year later, get a fresh pre-owned controller, and just have to pay the warranty cost again. This used to work with new controllers, but the policy changed. Unethical life hack here: I've had a PS4 for a long time. Over time, the joystick on my control started to drift. I went to Best Buy and purchased a brand new PS4 controller with the extended warranty. I went in, about a month later, with my old drifty controller, and told them I was experiencing problems. They switched it out for a brand new one. Boom, now I had two brand new controllers. They asked if I wanted to purchase another warranty for this new controller. They just gave me, but I declined, because I felt kinda bad. But in theory, you could just keep doing this over and over again, every time your controller starts to degrade. I work for a nationwide steel supply company. We sell the same plate of steel, sometimes, up to 6 or 7 times. What do I mean by that? Say you need a ring of steel, that is 5 feet in outer diameter and 4 feet inner diameter. That leaves 4 feet in the middle, being cut out of it. Well, you're not just buying the ring. You're buying the whole piece of steel, used to cut that ring out of. The piece that comes out from the middle and the corners are called drops. If you don't request, we ship the drop to you, then we do not. You get a ring, and we get a 4-foot circle of steel to sell again, or multiple times, if we can keep cutting it. State trooper here. If I pull you over for speeding, and you apologize, the odds of you getting a warning have just skyrocketed. Redditors like to say, never admit to it, because they'll use that against you. I have never needed what the driver said for a guilty verdict. In fact, I've never even used what they've said. I've been in court 100 times, and never lost a speeding ticket case. The point of the ticket is to change your behavior. If you acknowledge your behavior was bad, then I'll believe there's a chance you'll change your behavior without needing the ticket. City cop here, retired now. Same advice. Especially applies for patrol cops who aren't specifically working in the traffic unit or on a traffic detail at the time of the stop. If the cop is a patrol officer who is actively patrolling and sees the infraction and makes the stop, your odds of getting the ticket depend heavily on A, how egregious was the violation, and B, if the officer's intervention is likely to address the behavior. That intervention can be a conversation or warning if the officer believes it will have an impact. If you're rude or make it clear that it won't, then the only other possible way to potentially influence the behavior is to write the ticket. One thing I don't think many civilians realize is that a lot of us, certainly this was my approach, viewed a traffic stop as an opportunity to make an ultimately positive contact. Most people rarely interact with the police. Unfortunately, many of those interactions come when something bad has happened to them: a crash, home burgled, assaulted, or they've made a huge mistake, DUI, for instance, or do something wrong, like commit a traffic infraction, and get stopped. My attitude, especially on stops, was always that if I could leave the stop with the sense that there was some possibility of behavior change, and having made that once in 5 or 10 years contact with police an ultimately positive one for the civilian, it was a win. Former local journalist here. If you want to know something about your town, or pretty much anything locally, or find something hinky that you want investigated, just call or email them and ask, what's happening with that? Insert weird item in city budget, or shut down road, or cop who got fired. When I was off deadline, I actually loved fielding these questions. They were mainly from old people, and pretty much worked as customer service for the city a lot. I directed people to local programs that would help them. I confirmed the start and proposed end dates of construction, and I told people what companies had pulled permits to build that new restaurant on Main Street. Local journalists have a wealth of knowledge in all departments of what is going on in your city, because they drift between one or the other frequently, and we ask the other reporters in the cubicle next to us, too. They're your tour guides, social workers, watchdogs, and public defenders, if you just ask them. They aren't doing it for the money, cries, in past due bills, they're doing it for the love of their community. They all really embrace the localism aesthetic. I guess, this is sort of a not supposed to find out thing, because if everyone did it, they'd never get their other work done. I work in mental health, and regular exercise has been proven to have higher efficacy than antidepressant medications, therapy, microdosing, etc. for improving mood and alleviating symptoms of depression and anxiety. Exercise is king. I shout this as much as possible, of course, but just saying. Edit. After reply hostility, my intention was to simply share the data. As someone diagnosed with MDD many years back, I empathize with the struggle for some of us to even get out of bed. Creating a new movement routine from a variety of mental health states can feel nearly impossible. Some clients take a hybrid approach and use medication to help jumpstart others' goals, like exercise. And lastly, the monoamine theory of depression is just that, a theory. It seems not all of us are helped by modulating serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine. It's always valuable to consider other sources like hormones, vitamin D, diet, hydration, 1 to 2 ounces per day, per pound of body weight, regarding biological causes if or when present. Some causes appear to be related to the overproduction of glutamate for not just depression but OCD. Some find relief utilizing ketamine therapy when treatment resistance from monoamine approach. Specific data, placebos have been showing to be 30 to 50% effective against depression. Antidepressants have been shown to be 50 to 70% effective, although it's important to note that there have been criticisms of past studies and even books authored on this topic. Exercise. Meta-studies have indicated about 50% reduction in symptoms, with 1999 Duke Smile study measuring 60 to 75% after 16 weeks of aerobic exercise, about 3 sessions per week. In specific studies under optimal conditions, efficacy rates as high as 80% have been reported. Exercise seems to work best for mild-moderate depression, but impressive data has been reported for MDD as well. If you're in Canada and have a retail trading account and want to convert CDN cash to US, depending on the urgency of the conversion, if you don't need it now, and it is a significant amount, don't just convert it over and pay your bank between 1.5% to 3% on the exchange. DLR and DLR.U are one-day settlement securities. DLR is CDN, DLR.U is US currency. Buy the DLR. Next business day, transfer it to the US side of your account. Sell DLR.U in the US account. It takes the DLR and covers. That way, you only pay whatever your commission is on the buy or sell, you don't pay the conversion rate. As I'm typing this, spot rate on the market is 1.36. My firm is charging 1.39, if you just transfer over directly. Anything that is going to cost you less than $20 on exchange rate, go ahead and just transfer over. But if you are transferring $10,000 CDN to US, there's a difference of $280. If you are planning ahead, buy the DLR, then transfer it over on settlement, sell the DLR.U, you only pay the commission of $20 on the buy-sell. You are also looking at a 3-day movement. If it's a rush, sucks to be you, you pay the extra rate. If you have a margin account, you can do a true Norbert's Gambit, and buy today, initiate the transfer, and put the sell order today, so that it cuts a day out, buy settles, gets transferred immediately, to cover the sell that settles the same day, but most retail outlets require you to do this through their phone brokers, so you have to pay the broker rate on the one side of the transaction, so it's more expensive. They do this to try to encourage you to do the transfer manually, yourself in your account, so that they make the $280 off you. It pays to plan. Delivery driver here. Not much of a hack, but loads of people don't seem to know this. If you create an account with the courier who's delivering your parcel, when logged in, you can set up a safe place where we can deliver your parcel to, if you're not at home. We'll follow the instructions and leave it wherever you want us to, within reason of course. You can probably also do it from the tracking link, but with an account, it'll be set up for every single delivery to your address, automatically. Makes both our lives an awful lot easier. I don't work there. This can be a hack to get out of paying a towing fee. I had my car towed to a yard because I stupidly thought it was a different day where I could park. Got my car towed, aware it's my fault, so I might as well make this situation a fun one. Walked into the office, with the customer already screaming at the front desk. Waited a whole 5 minutes for them to finish, and they finally left. Front desk was just expressionless, and were clearly used to it. I came up with a bright face and said, "So, if I scream like that, will there be a chance I don't have to pay for the towing?" They all cracked up laughing, and we all just went along the convo. Front desk stamped the receipt in front of me, and just said, "Just read the signs next time, bud, we got you for now." Didn't expect this, but felt so boss when I left. Flight was delayed getting into an airport because of an incoming blizzard. We landed, but our outgoing connection was cancelled, along with every other flight out. The help desk was being inundated by jerks, yelling at the poor agents, who were powerless in the face of weather, and doing their best to rebook people. By the time my turn rolled around, I waited for the agent to gesture me forward, then waited a beat, and asked, "So, busy day huh? Do you need a minute to catch up? Or maybe just breathe?" And the agent laughed, took a deep breath, some sips of their coffee, and then hooked me up with a pile of vouchers and upgraded seats on the next morning flight. It always pays to have a sense of humor, and especially some grace and kindness, for those in the service industries. If you're in credit card debt, a lot of companies will allow you to negotiate a better interest rate if you agree to start making payments. You'll save a ton of money on interest, and your credit score won't take a hit for missing a payment. It will likely increase your credit utilization, but that's just temporary, and isn't as bad. I was out of work for a bit, due to medical reasons, and put my life on a credit card. That is what they are for, after all. I let my card go overdue, called in, and told them the situation, and said I couldn't afford the minimum payments. They set me up with lower payments, with an interest rate that was like 15% APR lower than it would have been if I just let it sit on my card. For the US only, AccuWeather, along with a vast myriad weather apps, really just uses data provided for free by the Nation Weather Service. Oh, sure, they have forecasters, but no way do they have enough for every county and forecast. Most really just give overall forecasts for general areas. Instead of saying, "My app is more accurate," actually go find your local NWS office, and you can find a more specific forecast for your area that will tend to be more accurate overall. And remember, what the NWS literally gives away for free, these companies want to monetize, and have you pay subscription fees for what already is free weather data. Edit. Got messaged a cool question regarding why your local NWS would be more accurate. An NWS office will have employees from that region who focus not just on synoptic, large-scale forecasting, but also local patterns and their effect on weather that you just cannot get from a lot of the paid apps. A majority of the apps will literally just take the data from a single weather model, while NWS uses what are called ensembles, then give multiple outputs that they can use to not only analyze the agreed-upon patterns, but deduce the most likely outcome before making an official forecast. In the immortal words of the great Bill Paxton, those apps are in it for the money, not the science.